Hello everybody, this is Toys R Us, and for this new figure unboxing and review we're going to be looking at the Magic Square Ms B55 Space Shuttle, which I'm sure you can guess is another company's version of a Generation 1 blast-off figure. So what we're going to do in this video, we're going to have a detailed look at him in both of his modes. We're going to compare him with the Generation 1 original. I'm going to show you the entire contents of the packaging. We can have a look at the beautiful box, and we can also see how he displays and fares with some other legend scale figures as well. And I'm going to try and get him to stand up as well. No, he's not going to. Anyway, before we go any further, I'd like to thank Shozy, because that's where these came from, and also to remind anybody who's not subscribed to the channel, if they hit that subscribe button for me now please, because it really will help me out. Right, I'm going to start off, as I say, with all the positives, and then I'm going to give you a couple of negatives as well, because to be honest, well, in fact, we'll see in a second. Let's first and foremost have a look at the packaging. So for those of you who are unaware, Magic Square is a company that isn't licensed by Takara or Hasbro because their figures transform, so they aren't allowed to use the proper name. So, but you can clearly tell that this is their take on a Generation 1 blast-off. They've even pretty much copied the box from Generation 1 figures with the sunburst in the middle, and they've even given it a text spec on the back as well. So interestingly enough, he's called Ms B55. Now the box is huge. He does come packaged in robot mode. The packaging comes exactly like this, to be honest. So but again, because he's a combiner, and what I've seemed to have discovered is that a lot of third-party companies, in fact I've only obviously done New Age Devastator and this version of bruticus, but there of course is the blaster for him, which is going to look great. But what the only thing that really I suppose gets to me is the fact that there's all these extra pieces. So we've got the thighs here. If you remember, we had the chest with vortex, etc. So it's like they're a combiner, but they're not really, because you've got all these bots that you're building up and just attaching to it. Perhaps I'm looking into it a little bit too much, and I'm just used to things like that where you can just build them straight up, including the pieces. So perhaps that's just my way of looking at it. There's also going to be the fist. So again, the reason I've got these here to show you, even though I'm not going to do the combined mode in this video, is to give you an idea, I suppose, of how big the fully combined version is going to be. Now, he also comes with some instructions, and once again, with them being Magic Square, they're nigh on impossible to understand, and indeed really quite difficult and intricate. I'm going to do my best to get a transformation process video up for you. And one other quick thing to have a look at is the collector's card that comes with it. Again, this is a perfect again copy of the Takara Generation 1 figures. And I suppose we've got the blaster to look at, but most importantly, I know you guys want to see the figure. So he comes packaged in robot mode. This is how he comes. And with Magic Square, the big difference between them and New Age that I found is these are all plastic, whereas New Age figures tend to have some die cast in them. And this feels quite weighty, and that's because there's lots of stuff, as usual, going on in these legs and indeed in this backpack. And I suppose the best way to prove that is there he is in his robot mode, and there is the shuttle mode that he's going to transform into. So you get a pretty much idea of how much not shape shifting, folding out, panel folding, panel collapsing, etc. there is in the transformation. Robot himself, though, again, the one thing you can't argue with these is they do look like the cartoon representations of themselves. Excuse me. The head, nice bit of detail, full articulation all the way around, looks up and down. Arms will come all the way out to the side. They'll rotate. They will spit. They're on ball and socket. You can see that. They'll go all the way around that way as well. You've got, have we got an ab crunch? Yes, we've got an ab crunch. You do have with most of these. There's obviously the bending at the hips as well. There is a waist swivel. There is a shoulder swivel underneath. There's a bicep swivel. So there's like loads of swiveling going on here. There's also bicep flexion. There's wrist swivels as well. As I say, super, you can see that's on a ball and socket as well. Super articulate figures. You definitely can't say that is one thing they do lack. The legs will go out to the side. They will also kick all the way to the front, and if I think you just tuck that up out the way, you can get them near enough Oh, why won't that go back? You can't. Ah, I didn't realise that. So it'll kick forwards, but by the looks of it, no, it won't go back. You get the knee bend. Again, you've probably gathered that these are all genuine first impressions. I haven't really had to play with it. I've just transformed that one. There is an ankle tilt and rock as well, but that's, well, I say that's pretty much it. Let's be honest, that's incredibly impressive. And that is also why these figures are dubbed or known as mini masterpiece figures. So the little blaster goes in there, and this is a case, I think, where the robot does, they usually do anyway, it does look better than the shuttle. I'm going to come to the shuttle in a second. Unfortunately, this, my generation 1, does suffer with what you can see is where the legs collapse, but he's way bigger than the generation 1 version of himself. I'm going to let him sit back out there. This is, as I say, quite a big figure. Now at the moment I'm just going to bring in some mainline figures which people may be able to recognize and indeed gauge the size from, but then I'm going to bring in some actual third-party legend scale figures as well. So we've got generation 1 to his, well, it's his right hand side, left hand side on the screen, so just obviously bigger than a mini bot, nowhere near as big obviously as generation 1 prime. And then we've got some mainline figures. So we've got a core class, and that's where these legend scale figures tend to fit in, right in between deluxe and core class. So that's, as I say, mainline figures. So for those of you who collect Magic Square figures, New Age figures, etc., this is going to give you an idea, a much better idea, shall we say, of scale and size. So we've got a New Age Swoop, we've got a Magic Square Trailbreaker, we've got a Mechanic Studios white version of Sandstorm. I've got a New Age Wheeljack who's tiny. He's absolutely tiny. What else have I got knocking around here? I've got an Iron Factories Mirage. So again, I suppose you've got a full idea there of the scale and size of him. Pretty much, as you say, I'm not going to say industry standard because there's a slight difference between them all, but he fits in really well with what we've got going on here, even more so obviously with this guy because he is Magic Square as well. Right, let's move this out of the way and have a look at the shuttle, and I just quickly want to show you this again. Look at the size difference in that, it's crazy. So as you can tell by the legs and stuff, loads of panel folding out, etc. This is him compared to the G1 original, so again much bigger. With regards, I did this as a bit of a joke with Rohan. Look, it's a legend scale figure, but it's taller than a standard deluxe, and it is when it's that mode. It's way bigger. I suppose alternate mode then, another generation 1 figure, tiny little mini bots. What else have we got here? I've got G1 Boss. I've got Generations Jurassic Park. I've got a DX9, another Magic Square. That is their take on Double Dealer. And then for a little bit of fun, we've got some New Age Bumblebee and Cliff Jumper. So that's probably going to give you a good idea of the scale and size, depending on what you collect. Hopefully, I think I've covered most bases, to be fair, apart from Masterpiece. But there you go. Masterpiece is obviously huge compared to that, so there's no point really comparing them with them. So shuttle aesthetically looks okay for me. All these sort of gaps here aren't the greatest. There's a huge gap at the back there, and the whole of the interior here, you can see there, it's hollow. All of that is just totally hollow, and the reason why I have an issue with this, and it's probably just me, but I've checked a few people's comments out, you've got to panel all of this in together, and because this is hollow on the inside, if you just miss one of the panels like that, and I've deliberately done that, you can't get into this to get it out. You may need some tweezers. Even with tweezers, I really sort of struggled. So what you've got to do is you've got to pretty much take it all apart. I'm just going to show you inside. It is just hollow right there. There's nothing on these side parts, so all of these can collapse in on themselves. And as I say, that's why I'm going to do my best. I'm going to struggle, but I'm going to do my best to get you a transformation process video that isn't 25 minutes. So I'm going to try just to clip this together again for you to sort of see how they just, maybe it's just me, I just really feel that these and X-Transbots, they just over engineer stuff. It's very clever, don't get me wrong, it is super clever how they manage to do that, pull all the panels out, etc. Right, so I've got that in there, now let's see if I can click this in with it going. Not too bad. Maybe it just needs a bit more loosening up, because that was the first time I've done that so easily, but it's still a bit of a bugbear that is completely hollow at the back. You can adjust these if you want. The wheels are just for show, none of them go round, but I suppose, as I've said again to quite a few people, I imagine most people are purchasing this purely for the fact that he's going to combine into bruticus, which of course I will be doing in a totally separate video. This is just purely the review for Ms B55 Space Shuttle. Please let me know in the comments if you think I'm being overly harsh. I suppose I just expected perhaps that little bit more. I'm just wondering if I could turn that around. No, you can't. I think you can actually. I think I've got that backwards. Now I'm looking at that. No, it's not going to go past there. That's going to snap it, so it must be right. On some of the pictures I've seen, they haven't even got these out, they've got them folded in. But there you go, guys, this is exactly that. It's Magic Square's take on a Generation 1 blast off figure. I want you to let me know what you think in the comments. Am I being overly harsh, or do you think it's perhaps right? Again, you can get this via a direct link in the description from Shozy, and don't forget the code Toys R Us. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.